Here's what I'll be using on today's 11 by 14 inch canvas. If you want to use the same papers and stencils that I'm using, you can click on the PayHip link below to purchase my digital download files. This will give you instant access to my supply list, printables, cut files, etc. Of course, you don't need to purchase these. Feel free to use any stencils you already have, or you can paint and or draw your own designs. I like to use a hardboard canvas for my art, as it will easily take anything I throw at it. Plus, I can just pop it into any standard size picture frame when I'm done. But you can use whatever kind of canvas or material base you prefer. So let's get started. All right, to get started, I've taken some different papers, printed them out on my LaserJet printer. Inkjet, sometimes you're going to get some smearing when you start doing other stuff to them, so I like to use my LaserJet or my laser printer. Then I coffee dyed them. I think this is gives it a really cool kind of aged background. And now I'm cutting off the blank edges and cutting them into obviously squares and rectangles. Now you could tear them instead of cutting them. You could use scissors to cut them. You could tear them into circles or triangles, or cut them into whatever makes you happy. This application, I just was into squares, into that look. And I'm kind of just trying to decide where I want different things. A lot of this is going to be covered up. It's just our background collage. But I think a lot of these papers are really cool looking, and they're really you're going to see them here and there shining through the background, and I think it's going to look really cool. I'm just finishing up here. As I finish up, I just want to say I like to use Mod Podge to do my decoupaging. A lot of people like to use different things. Whatever you're into is just going to work probably fine with this. I prefer Mod Podge, and I like to water it down a little bit so it's a little thinner. You can use yours at full strength, however you like to do it, but I like it thinner. And then I'm just going to start by putting a few papers at the top. I like to do a little bit at a time. And then I like to put some Mod Podge over the top, and then I like to smoosh down with my fingers to make sure I get a good bit of the bubbles out and make it as smooth. And then I like to tamp all over with my brush. You'll see me doing this again and again. I smooth it out, brush it on, smoosh it, and then I tamp my brush because I don't want brush strokes in the end. So I will do different things, as you will see coming up, that take those brush strokes out. I think brush strokes are really cool when you have other kinds of different applications, but mostly for what I do not want brush strokes. Now I'm going to put some red, yellow, and orange out on my palette, and I'm going to start painting my leaves, and I just kind of dab it on. I want a mix of colors, not really thinking about it too much, just putting it on. If you get too much of one color on, just go get some more of another color, and just keep going till you get them like you want them. I'm going to move them to the side and bring over another batch and keep going till I get them all done. Now I'm going to put a little green on my palette, a paper towel down over the mess I've already created, and I'm going to go and put just a little, with my liner brush, just a little edge on these. And I'm going to take my finger as I go, and I'm going to swipe off away from the leaf, because I want it to just to be a very, not a perfect little line, but just a little bit of a smudge of an edge. This goes really quickly. There's an up close look at it, and then I'm going to show you both with and without. Now I've got my modeling paste out, and I'm going to scrape a little bit on all over my canvas, here and there, putting a little more on, taking a little more off until I'm happy with it. If I don't like it, in some places I can take a baby wipe or a wet paper towel and remove it and come back in and do some more. I'm going to take my white and add a little bit of dark gray. I'm not worried about it being 100% mixed up, because I like to have different tones in my paint. So in this particular case, I'm just doing a pretty good job. And I'm taking 2 baby wipes, and I'm going to dip into the paint, and I'm going to tamp it onto my canvas. And I've got the Tuscan teal here. I'll put some gray and the white, and I'm just going to keep doing it over and over and over until I get the look I want. And I love, because you've got that Mod Podge surface underneath. If I want to remove more paint, it's so easy just to wipe it off at this point. You can just tamp or tamp a little bit more on. If you don't have baby wipes, you can use an old piece of cloth or paper towels, whatever you like to do. And now I'm going over a little heavier on those spots that I want to show more through with the baby wipes, so they come through a little better. Just go over it till you get the look, your look that you like. I'm taking some red, mixing a little green with it to make a brown. A little bit more. I've got my stencil that I've cut. You could hand draw this, your branches. You do not need to have a stencil to do this. I was just making kits at the time and making lots of them, so when I first created this canvas. Make sure my branches are where I want them, with where my birds are going to be on the canvas is what's really important. Go into my paints, and then I'm going to dab it off on my little dollar plate that I use as a palette to really work it into the sponge, so I don't go in with globbiness. If I go in with too much paint, it's going to seep under my stencil, and I do not want that. And now after the brown, my reddish brown, I'm going to go in with just a little bit of green here and there to add just a little bit of different dimension, bring it all together. I'm going to continue down and do the same thing with the other branches, starting with my brown. And you're going to see I get a little bit of glob in here that I'm not thrilled with, but that's okay. I'm going to be able to cover that up with leaves or fix it with my liner brush here in a few minutes. Start to go in with my liner brush, but then I think, you know what? I want a thinner long liner brush, so that's what I go and get up there. And now I'm going to get it in the paint and just lay it down on the canvas and drag it through a little bit just to make those stencil connections. Again, I'm not worried about being real precise, but I just don't want to have branches that are often coming out of nowhere. I want them hooked to my main branch there. Now I'm going to go back in with my green, just put it here and there to give us a little bit of extra dimension. Now I'm going to start putting my leaves out to see where I want, get an idea where I want things. I'm trying to keep in mind where I'm going to put my birds. I'm trying to keep in mind that I want to make sure that every leaf is touching or looks like it's touching part of the tree, that it's not just floating out in the middle of anything. And I also want to keep a few leaves off to the side. I think I'm going to keep about 6, a couple different sizes off to the side that it will attach at the end with glue so that they're on the very outer part of my birds once they're at the very end. Time to put on our leaves. Do the same thing I did before with putting some Mod Podge down, leaves down, and smushing, my technical smushing term. Trying to get most of the air out and then tamping down on top. Again, not going for perfection. And I'm having some of my leaves at the sides and the top and the bottom will go over the edge, hang over, and we'll cut those off later. So it hopefully gives it the illusion that the tree is just ongoing. This is just a small part of the large tree. I'm going to coat my extra leaves that are going to be glued on top once the birds are done. I'm going to coat them with Mod Podge now back and front so that they will be the same finish as the rest of the canvas, but also that they will last for a long, long time. And they will be dry by the time I finish the birds. Once they're coated, I pick them up and move them to a dry spot of my paper so they can completely dry. And when completely dry, they'll pop right off. Taking my craft knife and go along and cutting off all the leaves on the edge. Make sure that you peel away from the front of the canvas. Don't peel towards the canvas, or you could accidentally peel them up, and we don't want that. Now I use a clear stencil material, which makes it very difficult to see on camera. I'm sorry about that. But you can see here that I've numbered my birds so that I can cut up my stencil but keep the parts together that's how they're supposed to be. It'll make it easier as I go. I've got my modeling paste. I'm going to take my dauber and cover it with my little piece of felt. You'll see how we're going to use that in a minute. And I've got my toothpaste, my toothpick for cleanup. Start applying my birds with modeling paste. Lining up my stencil with the feet. And I want to put a good bit of modeling paste on here. I want it to be a nice thick bird. I'm not too worried about getting the modeling paste really perfectly smooth on top because we're going to use our felt dauber to help us with the texture, and we want texture. The really cool thing about having that decoupaged background is that if I don't like how this turns out or I mess it up somehow when I put my bird on, I can easily wipe it or scrape it off. Use a baby wipe or something with a little bit of dampness, clean it off, dry it, and go again. It's very, very forgiving until it dries completely. So see, I don't freak out that I've got a little, you see my smudges up there that I got on there from the stencil. I like to scrape all the modeling paste I can off of my stencils, and then I just take them to the sink and rinse them under cold water. My felt tip dauber, and I'm going to go very lightly over each bird, just kissing the bird very lightly to make a nice little texture. If I have any huge ridges that are bothering me, I can go over those a little bit more, but I don't want to smush my modeling paste down so much. I just want to give a nice little texture to it. Now I'm going to get my toothpick and go around the edges. Sorry if you can hear that. We got a little bit of a thunderstorm going on right at the moment here in Iowa. So you're going to go around and just clean up any of the edges that are bugging you. Now I'm looking on my phone at a yellow finch, and I'm taking my toothpick and I'm going to go through and I'm just going to make a few just barely touching the paste and a few lines in there. You can line your stencil back up if you think you need more of a guide. Typically this Alex quick dry caulk that I call modeling paste dries in about 20 minutes and then you can start painting normally. But these we're using it very thickly, so you want to make sure you give it a little bit longer. Now I'm putting some yellow out on my palette and stirring it up with just a little bit of red to make a darker, kind of a goldeny yellow. Now I'm going to just put some regular yellow out so that I have a little bit of both colors. And I'm going to start painting my birds. Again, I don't have to be perfect. If I get a little bit on my background, it's so easy to clean up because of that decoupage surface. You don't have to be super careful or worry about it. Now I'm going in with both colors of yellow here and there. So we have some nice color variance and dimension. We don't want one color birds. When my birds were dry, they're way darker than I had wanted, so I'm going in with some lighter yellow and brightening them up. Now I'm ready to get the second part of my stencil. I've got my dauber and a little dark gray. Make sure that I don't have too much paint on my dauber. I'm going to go in and pounce some of that detail on my birds. Using my liner brush to go in and get a little more detailed. I spent a good amount of time working on this detail, but I think it's important that you get it like you want it. Don't forget you can also go back in with paint and cover up mistakes and fix it like you want it. Because ultimately, you're the only one that has to be happy with it. And I decided I wanted a little bit brighter yellow. Still a little dark for me. I made a little darker orange and did the feet. And now I'm taking my dauber, cutting the end off of it, sliding it down. You can use these daubers several times before you throw them away. And now I'm going in with my white to add a little bit more dimension on the wings. Now my liner brush. Now I want to make a little lighter yellow with my yellow and white. Go in and a little more white. If I looked at my picture again on my phone, I think, and you have a little lighter belly color. I'm going to make a lighter gray and use my long liner brush. Now I'm going to take my extra leaves, and several of them need to be cleaned up, a little bit Mod Podge that's stuck around the edges, so I want to do that real quick. Decide where I want them. Ready to start gluing. I like this beacon glue because it has a quick grab and it dries quickly. And once it is dry, I'll have to go in and clean up a few cobwebs, but that's not a big deal. And the bond is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. You might also hit the bell button so YouTube will notify you each time I add a new video. Until next time.